3 stories from r/CreepyStories subreddit. Story 1. Why I quit using the dark web. My story begins a few years ago. I decided to use my computer skills to run a small darknet forum, mainly just to share information without censorship. At first, I was extremely paranoid about my site getting hacked and my anonymity being compromised, so I went online and began researching everything I would need to ensure my own safety. After countless days of scouring blogs, forums, and other materials, I decided I was ready. I didn't have any money, so I couldn't just buy a VPS and host the site offshore or whatever. Instead, I decided to use my old laptop. After all, I wasn't planning on running a major website. So, after setting up the server and doing what I thought was literally everything possible to harden it against attacks, I put the site online. Everything went great for a couple of months. Donations rolled in as the user base grew larger and larger. After around 5 months, the user base had gotten so big I had to upgrade and migrate everything to a new PC, which I built just to host the forum. From there, everything seemed perfect. The site was running smoothly, and there were no issues with the migration until one day when I came home and noticed the PC had frozen. I didn't think much of it, maybe just a software bug caused it, so I rebooted. That's when it was clear something was wrong. The PC lit up, beeped a few times, then shut off. I thought to myself, okay, it's a hardware issue. After a few hours trying to diagnose the problem, I figured it out. The RAM had been corrupted. I took it back to the store since it was still under warranty, and the customer rep told me it might have just been a faulty stick. When I got home, I replaced the RAM and had the site back up and running within a few hours. Everything seemed perfect again. I apologized to the users for the downtime, and everyone seemed happy enough. Fast forward a few more months, the forum had been up and running for around a year and a half. This is when things started to get really weird. I finished work on a Friday. It was a gorgeous day in the middle of summer. I came home, had something to eat, sat down in front of my PC, and noticed I had a message. Upon opening it, I realized I'd messed up somewhere. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not like Assange or anything, so I didn't really know why anyone would actually target me. But the world is a crazy place, so whatever. The message contained my details, my name, address, bank information, passwords, private emails, private messages, everything from nearly every device I owned. I freaked out, immediately took the PC offline, and turned my internet off. Little did I know, this guy had done his research. After a couple of hours pacing my room, I received a text message. I know everything about you. The message was sent via some type of SMS service, so there was no way to trace it. Then my phone rang. Don't talk, just listen. I know everything there is to know about you. All I want is 2 Bitcoin, or things get worse. I'll send you a text with the wallet details. The phone call ended just as quickly as it started. I opened my laptop and checked my Bitcoin wallet. There was just enough left over from the donations to pay this guy off, so I hoped this would be the end of it. I entered his details and sent the payment. My phone rang again. Thank you for complying. Unfortunately, someone I know really likes you. He hung up. Panicking, I tried calling the number back, but an automated message began to play. The number you have dialed has not been recognized. A few hours passed, and I thought to myself that maybe the last call was just him having some fun. After a long day, I decided to go to bed. Sometime around 2 a.m., I was woken by banging at my front door. I jumped out of bed, turned on all the lights, and grabbed a knife from the kitchen. Walking slowly toward the window, I looked out and saw someone standing by a car. When they spotted me, they got in and drove off. I rushed to the door, hoping to catch a license plate, but by the time I'd opened it, they had already turned the corner. As I turned, I noticed an envelope on the floor. I picked it up, went back inside, locked the door, closed the curtains, and sat in the kitchen. I placed the envelope on the counter and stared at it for around half an hour, trying to muster the courage to open it. Did these guys really come to my home? I thought to myself. After the half hour was up, I decided enough was enough. I opened the envelope, and pictures fell out onto the counter. They were of me sleeping. These guys had not only been outside my house, but they'd also been inside while I was sleeping. The images had been edited with strange love hearts added next to me. Now I was sufficiently freaked out. I didn't go back to sleep, and when the sun finally rose, I decided to head to the police station and tell them everything. I hadn't broken any laws, so I hoped they would at least help me. After hours of explaining everything to them, they told me there was nothing they could do. At this point, I had never felt so alone in the world. I was terrified of what this guy was planning. I didn't have the foggiest idea what I was supposed to do or expect, so I decided to wipe everything, my laptop, PC, and phone. I packed up everything I needed, stuffed it all into a bag, and decided to leave. I had a couple of friends I knew I could rely on, so I called up my old buddy Marcus. We met, had a few beers, and I explained everything to him. He offered me a place to stay, and I hoped that would be the end of it. How wrong I was. Okay, well, we need to do something, maybe set a trap or something. So we went over numerous ideas, everything you could think of, from cameras to baiting him. We settled on the idea of staying up during the night and locking him in a room. We filled the bed with pillows, set up cameras, and even barred the windows. We hid in the room next door, and after a few hours had passed, we heard the lock rattling on the front door. We knew it was game time. We'd left the door slightly ajar so we could see outside as he went past, and the moment he entered the room, we both sprang into action. As quickly as we could, we closed the door and locked it from the outside using a chair and a metal bar. There was only one way he could get out, and he'd have to destroy the door. We could see his silhouette as he paced the room quietly. It was creepy as hell. We called the police and kept an eye on him. At last, I thought I could finish this and move on with my life. Just as the police arrived, we saw the guy take out a gun and place it to his head. He held up a sign that read, "I love you," and then pulled the trigger. The police barged in with guns drawn and told us to get on the floor. We complied and shouted, "He's in there," pointing at the door. The police removed the makeshift lock, entered the room, called for an ambulance, and put Marcus and me in the back of a police car. I sat in the interview room for what felt like hours while they conducted the investigation. Eventually, a detective came in, sat down in front of me, opened a folder, and placed photos on the table. "Do you know her?" "Her?" I said, looking at the pictures. "No," I replied, confused. He looked at me and said, "This is the person who's been stalking you." He then explained that they'd visited her home and found a shrine with photos of me everywhere, from restaurants to the gym, even shopping. He went on to tell me that she'd been the one who sent the messages and made the phone calls. They'd also found a diary with detailed plans for me and her. She wanted me to be her husband and had been following me for about a year and a half, since I'd started the forum. After I explained everything, the detective told me I was lucky to be alive. She had actually planned to drug and kidnap me, and she'd even made a makeshift locked bed so I wouldn't be able to escape. To this day, I feel lucky, and I haven't been on the dark web since. Story 2, story by Reddit user Dracokshow. Lockdowns are freaky. Though most of the people in my class took it as a joke. When a lockdown extends past 5 minutes, however, people start speculating the worst. We would all jump when the automated announcement played. I can still remember it, burned into my memory from that day. Lockdown, lockdown. Lock the doors, stay away from the windows. Lockdown, lockdown, the announcements would say before a series of beeps and then silence. Only to start up again a minute later. I don't know what we expected. People messaged their friends from all over the school and spread the message to the people beside them. Gunmen? No. No gunshots. Not yet. Drug bust? Nothing new. But they don't lock down the school for that. Did someone bring a weapon? Perhaps, but if we aren't hearing gunshots, it can't be a gun, meaning the constable could take them on. Speculations went back and forth for a few minutes. I remember halfway through being whispered a new idea, the intercom cut out mid-sentence. A crackling noise remained for a few seconds, before silencing completely. What I heard next chills me to the bone just to remember it. First it was a scream. A cliché horror scream as if there was bloody murder. Then it cut off. There were the sounds of bones crunching, before a strange silence fell. You could hear the blood hit the tiles in the hallway. After a few seconds there was a undescribable sound. A squelching sound almost. It was pulsating though, the sound, in both volume and pitch. There was a low hum that echoed through the school, which was followed by the sound of tearing metal. The hum and squelching continued, for another 10 minutes. It was a fear I couldn't describe shared by all that was in there that day. When it was all over, we were given a week off of school. No explanation. When we left the classroom, however, there was blood and some sort of bloodied matter everywhere. It coated the walls and lockers as though someone had attached a corpse to a powerful drill and then simply let it spin until all the parts flew off like a disc going too fast. It was the French teacher. Was being the key word. Not only that, but there were marks on the lockers like animal scratches that tore the metal as though slicing a pop can with a sharp knife. There were no tracks to or from the scene. Not a day goes by without nightmares of what I experienced. Mostly what I heard. I wish it was a gunman. I wish it was a crazy fuck with a AR-15. I wish. I tell myself that it was a crazy man with an AR-15 and a bunch of strange sounds. If I accept that it is anything else, I am accepting that whatever it was wasn't human. I would rather not believe that. Story 3, story by Reddit user Arucius. I found out why my barber cuts my hair for free. Mr. Faskel has cut my hair since I moved to the city about 3 years ago. He's an older guy, maybe 50s or 60s, and he possesses that look and drawl that makes me think he's from up north somewhere. He could be from New York, Maine, or even the Great Lakes area, but I never asked him where. He's not a big guy, maybe $120 in the rain, and he cuts my hair just the way I like it. High and tight on the sides, leave some on top so whoever I'm sleeping with has something to play with, and neaten up my sideburns. I can't grow a real beard or he'd probably trim that for me too. The best part is that he does it all for free. Hard to believe, I know, but it seems there was a cost after all. Our relationship started easily enough. I had an interview with the city, maintenance and custodial, and I wanted to look sharp and make a good impression. Everything other than that paid nothing or barely nothing, and I really wanted to lock this job down. I had a nice set of interview clothes, some comfortable business shoes, and a winning smile, and I needed a sharp haircut to seal the deal. That is where the problem lies. My hair grows abnormally fast. It always has, and when I was a kid my dad used to bemoan the fact. He made jokes about going to barber school or buying stock in master cuts, but he always understood that when it was time for a cut, it was time for a cut. If you let it go longer than 2 weeks without a cut, it just turns into a shapeless mass. By the end of week 3, I looked like a sheepdog and Dad would look over his paper and sigh before saying he would take me to the barber. Faskel's Hair and Beards was about a block from my house, and when I stuck my head in to see their prices, Mr. Faskel looked up and smiled at me over the pile of hair he was sweeping up. Then, suddenly, he took a deep breath and when he opened his eyes again I asked if everything was okay. Just fine, young man. Say, you look like a man in need of a haircut, am I right? I told him he sure was and he invited me in and told me to have a seat. He had about 1 million questions on that first visit. No, I didn't usually let it get this long. I liked it this way but a little long on top. No, I didn't use any special shampoo, just dandruff shampoo from the Dollar General. No, I wasn't really prone to dry scalp, but a fella can never be too careful. On and on and on and on until, finally, it was done. He had cut it just right, the perfect length, the perfect fade, everything. I asked him what I owed him, and he told me it was free. Come on, I'd said, you gotta charge me something. I let my customers pay what they can afford, he said, so whatever you can afford is fine with me. Think of it as a tip. I was okay with that and walked out with a free haircut while Mr. Faskel waved me out with a $10 tip. I left with a spring in my step. I felt like a new man, and I was ready for that job interview. I went home, got a shower, and when I looked in the mirror, I knew I had this. The next time I went to see Mr. Faskel, I left him a $20 tip and told him it was all thanks to him that I had gotten my awesome new job. For the next couple of years, I always went to Mr. Faskel when I needed a cut. If I had a date coming up, I went to Faskel's. Promotion interview at work? Faskel's. I told friends about his shop. I went there just to get a touch-up and talk with the old fella. In no time at all, Mr. Faskel and I were friends. He liked the same sports team I did, watched a lot of the same movies and TV shows I did, and even liked a lot of the same classic rock that I did. It was great, and I always looked forward to my bi-monthly haircut. Then, about 2 months ago, it all changed. I had come in to get my bi-monthly cut, telling Mr. Faskel about the previous week as he cut and styled my hair. He was always meticulous, getting everything just right as he cut and trimmed, and when he turned me around to look into the mirror, it was the same way I had gotten it for the last 3 years. I thanked him, handed him $10, and told him I'd see him soon. Of course, Mr. Faskel said, sweeping up the hair, "Come back anytime." I was leaving, almost a block up the street, when I realized I didn't have my sunglasses. They were my brand new Oakleys and they had cost quite a bit of cash. I remembered having them when I came up, taking them off my head, and setting them down at the station Mr. Faskel used. No problem, I thought, I'll just go back and get them. I stepped in, saying I had forgotten my sunglasses and was just going to grab them, and that's when I saw him. Mr. Faskel was looking up guiltily, his eyes panicked. He was down on all fours, eating the hair he had swept up off the ground like he was a cow in the field. When he turned, I could see pieces of hair sticking to his lip like accusations. He stood up, whipping himself off, brushing at his mouth as he tried to explain. "I know how this looks, and I'll admit that yes, I was eating your hair. But, you have to understand, your hair is what I look forward to. I don't eat just anyone's hair, well, I used to. Now I can't wait to see you come in so I can eat something good. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy," he shouted, getting up as he stalked toward me. He seemed to realize that saying that made him sound crazy, so he switched gears. "Haven't I always done good work for you? There's nowhere in this town that you would get a haircut for less than $25. I cut your hair for tips. I've cut your hair for the dollars in your pocket. I've been good to you, and you've been a good customer. Let's just pretend this never happened, okay? Let's just go back too," but I didn't hear the rest. I snatched up my sunglasses and was out the door before he could say another word. I spent a while thinking about that, and the more I processed it, the worse it seemed to get. It began to haunt my dreams, seeing him bent over and eating the hair straight off the floor, looking back at me and grinning with my hair in his teeth, and I would wake up in a cold sweat. I know, it's not a particularly scary thing, but it freaked the hell out of me. I don't really like it when people put hair in their mouths. I had a girl in elementary school who used to chew her pigtails and it bred a lifetime phobia in me. Just the thought of wet hair in someone's mouth makes me want to puke, and I can't even touch someone's hair without cringing if they have a wig. A weird collection of phobias, but they're mine. It only took a couple of weeks before I started seeing new growth. My hair just grows too fast, and after 3 weeks my boss commented that I was looking shabby. He handed me a 20 out of his own wallet and told me to get a trim over lunch. I took it and started looking for somewhere to get a trim. The city had quite a few shops, but it seemed like whenever I was in one, I caught someone looking at me out of the corner of my eye. It was never anything I could prove, just a feeling, and when I looked up, I could almost catch a glimpse of Mr. Faskel. He was gone when I looked, but it made me extremely paranoid. I became aware of more than a glimpse as the weeks went on. When I rode the bus to work, I caught the familiar deep inhale of someone smelling my hair. When I was standing in a lunch line, I felt my hair move as someone inhaled. When I was at Walmart buying groceries, someone actually touched my hair, but they were gone when I turned around. It led me to become something of a recluse, and I only left the house to go to work. Over time, my hair grew out and I decided I would have to get another cut. I went to bed, setting my alarm so I could get up early enough to get to the master cuts down on Bonnie. It was Saturday, I had the day off, and I had chores to do before I got to the business of relaxing. As I slipped off to sleep, I fell into a familiar dream, a dream that had plagued me for weeks. I was sitting in the barber chair at Mr. Faskel's, the cape falling around me like a spider web, and the old man asking me if it was too tight. I didn't say anything, I was too scared to speak, and as the scissors began to clip, I trembled in fear. I didn't dare look back at the old man. I just knew his real face would be replaced by a monstrous visage and I would wake up panting and looking around for nothing at all. When the alarm went off, I went to the bathroom to splash some water on my face and start the shower. My bare shoulder itched, and when I went to wipe it off, I noticed there was hair clinging to my sweaty hand. Not a lot, just leavings. Like the leavings you find after a haircut. I ran to the bathroom and found that my hair was cut just the way I liked it. The sides were high and tight, the top was manageable but still thick, and my bangs were perfect. Everything was just as it usually was, and I felt a cold chill run through me that had nothing to do with air conditioning. I called the landlord, had the locks changed, and reported to the police that someone had broken into my house and cut my hair. The police didn't really take it seriously. They made jokes about a midnight barber and asked if I'd left a tip under my pillow. I told them about Mr. Faskell, but when I gave them the address, they just shook their heads and walked away. They thought I was joking with them. They didn't believe a word of what I told them, and as I ran the shower, I remember sitting under the water for a very long time and just letting it run over me. The bits of hair flowing down the drain felt like a betrayal. 2 weeks later, I woke up with another fresh haircut. I called the police, but they rolled their eyes and told me to calm down. I told them it was hard for me to calm down when someone was breaking into my house and cutting my hair. I demanded they go check on Mr. Faskell, and told them right where his shop was, but they looked less amused this time at the suggestion. I asked if they had been to talk to him yet, and told them he had been there for 3 years, but they just told me it hadn't been funny the first time and it wasn't funny now. Why would it be funny? I asked, having to stop myself from grabbing one of them. Because Faskell's has never been open. It was a prop for the city's revitalization project, like cauliflowers across the street from it or green butcher beside it. It's set dressing, it's never open. Mr. Faskell was a guy who owned a barber shop in the 20s. He's dead, there is no Faskell who cuts hair. They left, and that left me very rattled. Mr. Faskell isn't a ghost, I know that. I have friends who go to him. I have felt him touch me. He's flesh and blood, just like I am, I'm sure of it. The fact that he eats hair is incidental. The man is real. But if he isn't Mr. Faskell, then who is he? How does he keep breaking into my house? I have a window in my room, but it's barred with a piece of broom handle and I live on the 3rd floor. I changed the locks again, I wedged a chair under my door, and when I finally made myself calm down enough to sleep, I hoped it would end. I woke up completely bald, not buzzed, not at a 0 guard, but bald. Like, someone shaved my head in my sleep and took the hair. They got my eyebrows too, my 5 o'clock shadow, and my thick sideburns. I was as smooth and hairless as a newborn baby. I don't know what to do. I can't call the cops, they won't believe me. I can't call the landlord, he's replaced the locks twice now and is getting angry about it. I can't afford to move, I can't leave my job, I'm stuck. What I did find, however, was a message left on my nightstand. I'm sure the cops will say that I wrote it, but I know I didn't. There's hair on it and it's written in a heavy hand like a kid's scribblings. It's done on the back of an ad for Faskell's hair and beards, and the implication was pretty obvious. Come see me when it grows back. If you don't, it makes no difference. I know where to find you.